The city lay in unnatural silence. Once a sprawling metropolis alive with noise and movement, it now resembled a tomb, a vast graveyard swallowed by shadows and ruin. Broken streets cracked beneath the heavy footsteps of those who dared to wander, and the air hung thick with a stale, metallic scent. The distant groans of the undead were faint echoes, reminders that death had not yet released its grip. But something else lurked in the shadows, something worse than the mindless hunger stalking the streets. Maya stirred awake beneath the crumbling remains of a burned-out bus shelter. The chill morning air seeped through her tattered jacket, biting at her skin. Her sharp eyes scanned the empty street. No movement. No signs of life, only the oppressive silence that pressed on her chest like a physical weight. Her heart pounded in her ears, louder than the faintest moans in the distance. She pulled herself up and surveyed the ruined cityscape. Skyscrapers shattered like broken glass reached toward the gray sky, their windows empty, eyes watching the death of a world. Somewhere in the distance, a lone crow took flight, wings beating desperately against the stillness. Maya wiped the grime from her face and checked the small pack slung across her shoulder. Inside, a few cans of food, a rusted knife, and a battered old radio, the last of its kind, though it hadn't worked for weeks. The radio was more a talisman than a tool now, a fragile link to the world that once was. Her fingers trembled slightly as she stuffed it back into the pack. She had no one to talk to, no voices on the airwaves, no calls for help, no warnings. Just silence. Her survival instincts sharpened. She moved quickly and quietly, scanning every shadow, every corner, every crumbling building. She wasn't alone, she never was. But the shadows held more than just the undead. The streets around her whispered danger. Graffiti scrawled on walls warned of other survivors, but not all were friendly. The dead were relentless, but sometimes the living were more dangerous. Maya's thoughts drifted to the group she had stumbled upon days ago, for others, each scarred by loss and fear. There was Jackson, the former cop who kept his pistol loaded and his secrets closer, Leah, a nurse whose soft eyes had a steel resolve, Carlos, a mechanic with grease-stained hands and quick reflexes, and young Eli, barely 16, whose wide eyes saw the world differently. Together, they moved cautiously through the ruins, searching for supplies, safe shelter, and answers. Suddenly, a faint sound caught Maya's attention, footsteps, but not the shuffling gait of the undead. These were deliberate, measured. Human. Her breath caught in her throat. Was it friend or foe? She crouched low, pressing her back against a cold brick wall, heart racing. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by a whispered conversation. "We can't stay here much longer," a man's voice muttered, strained and urgent. "They're getting closer." The shadows, something's wrong. Maya's grip tightened on the knife at her belt. She had heard rumors, whispers of something beyond the infected. A new threat that moved in the dark, silent, deadly. Not just the dead, but something alive beneath the ruins. She edged closer, careful not to give herself away. A woman answered, her voice shaky. "We need to find the others. If we don't stick together, we won't survive." Maya's mind raced. These voices belonged to strangers, but they shared the same desperate fight for survival. Then, chaos shattered the quiet. A distant scream, sharp and terrified, pierced the air. The two strangers froze, then broke into a run. Maya had no choice. She followed. The chase led her through a maze of collapsed buildings, rusted cars, and shattered dreams. Ahead, the scream echoed again, closer now. She saw a figure caught in the open, an older man, bloodied and surrounded by the shambling dead. Without hesitation, Maya charged forward, blade flashing in the gray light. She slashed and fought, her heart hammering as the undead closed in. Behind her, the strangers arrived, weapons drawn. Together, they scattered the approaching zombies, their breath ragged, adrenaline sharp. The man gasped, "Thank you, you saved my life." Maya nodded, eyes scanning the horizon. "We have to move. The shadows are coming. And they're worse than these." The survivors exchanged uncertain glances. In dead America, every day was a battle. But today marked something different. A new enemy was rising from the ruins. As they disappeared into the smoky haze, the city watched in silence, waiting, watching, lurking. Against the shadows, survivors would have to rise. If you like this start, I'll continue with part 2 next, just let me know. The city's ruined skyline stretched before them, a jagged horizon of shattered glass and twisted steel. Maya led the small group through the cracked streets, their footsteps echoing against the hollowed carcasses of cars and abandoned storefronts. The air was thick with dust, the scent of smoke and decay mingling with something else, something faint but chilling. Jackson, his pistol at the ready, scanned their surroundings with practiced caution. "We're not just fighting the dead anymore," he muttered. "Something's changed. The virus, it's evolved, or something else is feeding it." Leah nodded grimly, adjusting the bandages on Eli's scraped arm. "I've heard rumors. Experimental bioweapons. A lab accident, or maybe sabotage. The government was trying to control the outbreak, but instead, they made it worse." Carlos wiped sweat and grime from his brow, eyes narrowing as he eyed the distant ruins of what looked like a research facility. "That place. We should check it out. Maybe find answers. Or supplies." Maya hesitated, weighing the risk. "It's too dangerous to go in blind. But if there's a chance to understand what we're facing, and how to stop it, we can't ignore it." They moved cautiously toward the research center's skeletal remains, weaving through rubble and avoiding pockets of the undead. The zombies they encountered now moved with disturbing speed and cunning. They no longer just shuffled mindlessly, some dodged, others flanked, and a few showed strange, jerky movements that no one could explain. At a crumbled intersection, Maya paused. She crouched behind a rusted car, peering around the corner. A group of zombies feasted on a corpse in the street, but their behavior was off. Their eyes flickered strangely in the fading light, as if something was controlling them. "Look at them," Maya whispered. "It's like they're being led." Jackson nodded slowly. "That's what I've been afraid of. Some kind of signal, or worse, someone controlling them." Leah swallowed hard. The shadows. Maybe it's connected. Suddenly, a sharp metallic clang echoed nearby. The survivors froze, hearts pounding. From the rubble, a figure emerged, silhouetted against the gray sky, ragged clothes, a makeshift weapon in hand, eyes wild but wary. "Who are you?" Maya called softly, stepping forward. The figure lowered the weapon, revealing a gaunt face streaked with dirt and desperation. "Name's Soren. I've been following your trail. Heard you're looking for the truth." Jackson tightened his grip on his gun. "And why should we trust you?" Soren's eyes flicked nervously toward the research building. "Because I know what's in there. And it's not just the dead you need to worry about. Something worse, something alive." Maya exchanged looks with the others, weighing the risk. But trust was a luxury none of them could afford. "Talk," she said. Soren nodded. Before the collapse, the government had secret projects, trying to weaponize the virus. They experimented on people, tried to control the infection. But it backfired. The virus mutated, became smarter. And worse, some humans were infected but kept their minds. They're like shadows, hidden, moving, watching. Leah shivered. "You mean, intelligent zombies?" "Not quite. More like hybrids. They can think, plan. They're the ones leading the others, controlling them through some kind of signal. If we don't stop them, this city will be lost." Carlos glanced nervously toward the darkening horizon. "How do we fight something like that?" "We need to find the source," Soren said grimly. "The lab. It's down in the tunnels beneath the city. They still have power there, and something that's broadcasting the signal." Maya felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. "Then that's where we're going." The survivors moved toward the underground entrance, an old subway station cracked open by years of neglect and disaster. The air grew colder, damp, and heavy as they descended the stairs. Darkness swallowed them, broken only by the flickering light of Maya's makeshift torch. The tunnel walls were covered in graffiti, desperate messages from those who had come before. "Don't trust the shadows," one warned. Another simply said, "Run." Their footsteps echoed ominously. Somewhere in the distance, faint mechanical whirring mixed with low, guttural growls. As they ventured deeper, the tunnels twisted and turned like a labyrinth. The survivors clung together, senses straining. Each corner could hide death. Suddenly, Leah gasped. Ahead, dim red lights pulsed in the gloom, casting long, unnatural shadows. They moved closer, revealing a series of rusted doors marked with faded warnings, "Biohazard, authorized personnel only." Carlos reached out, pushing a door open. Inside, broken equipment and shattered glass littered the floor. Computers flickered weakly, screens displaying indecipherable codes. Then a sudden hiss filled the room, a sharp chemical leak warning. The survivors froze, eyes wide. Soren's voice broke the silence. "This is it. Whatever they were working on, it's still here. And it's dangerous." Maya stepped forward, scanning the control panels. "We need to find the source of the signal." Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled beneath them. Distant footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoed from the tunnel entrance. "Get ready," Maya warned. "They're coming." From the shadows, a group of hybrids emerged, zombies with eyes burning with unnatural intelligence, moving with a terrifying coordination. The fight was brutal. Shots rang out, flesh tore, and desperation fueled every movement. Maya's knife flashed as she struck down a hybrid lunging at her throat. Jackson's pistol barked in the dim light, taking down one after another. Leah helped Eli to safety, while Carlos jammed the leaking pipe to stop the gas. Breathing hard, Maya met Soren's eyes. "We can't hold them forever." Soren nodded grimly. "Then we move fast. Find the signal and destroy it." The survivors pressed on, deeper into the maze of tunnels, where answers, and horrors, awaited. The echoes of the past were catching up. The deeper they descended into the subway tunnels, the heavier the air grew, thick with dust, stale and sharp with chemical residue. Their footsteps echoed off the cracked concrete walls, each sound magnified in the oppressive darkness. Maya's eyes darted from shadow to shadow, every nerve screaming that danger was close. The hybrids had shown their ruthless coordination, and there was no telling how many more lurked below. "Stay close," Maya whispered, tightening her grip on her knife. Her breath came in shallow gasps, but her face remained hard, determined. The others followed silently, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and steely resolve. Eli stumbled briefly, but Leah caught him before he fell. Ahead, the tunnel opened into a wide underground station. Flickering fluorescent lights cast weak, sickly glows on the debris-strewn floor. Rusted benches, broken signs, and abandoned luggage were scattered about, ghosts of a world that no longer existed. Jackson raised his pistol and signaled for the group to stop. "I see movement ahead." From the shadows came muffled voices, human voices. Maya's heart sank. Not all survivors were allies. The collapse had brought out the worst in some. Suddenly, the narrow tunnel behind them exploded in chaos. From the darkness surged a pack of zombies, their jaws snapping, eyes wild. Maya swung her blade fiercely, severing limbs and striking with deadly precision. The group fought back to back, the air thick with groans and the sickening smell of decay. As the last zombie collapsed, panting heavily, a different threat emerged. Armed raiders appeared, stepping out from hidden alcoves, guns trained on the survivors. Their leader, a scarred man with cold eyes and a cruel smile, raised a hand. Well, he sneered. "Looks like we've found some fresh meat." Jackson raised his gun in defiance, but the raiders fired warning shots, sending bullets ricocheting dangerously close. "We don't want trouble," Maya said, voice steady despite the pounding in her chest. "We just want to survive." The leader laughed darkly. "Survival? This is our city now. You either join us or die." Before Maya could answer, a sharp clang echoed down the tunnel, a distraction, or a trap. Suddenly, one of their own raised his weapon, firing into the raiders' ranks. The fight erupted into chaos. Amidst the gunfire and screams, a terrible betrayal was revealed. Carlos, the mechanic who had seemed loyal, grabbed a scavenged weapon and aimed it at Maya. "Sorry, Maya," he said coldly. "I'm done playing hero." Maya's heart froze as Carlos fired. She dodged just in time, the bullet grazing her arm. The others shouted, shocked and confused. "Why?" Maya gasped, struggling to stay on her feet. Carlos sneered. "I'm with the Raiders. I'm done wasting my life on lost causes." Leah shouted a warning as more Raiders surged forward. The survivors were surrounded, outnumbered. In the chaos, Eli vanished. "No!" Leah screamed, eyes wide with panic. Maya lunged toward the young boy's last known direction, but the crowd of enemies closed in. She felt a desperate rage ignite inside her. This wasn't just survival anymore, it was war. She ducked behind a crumbling pillar, catching her breath. Her arm throbbed where Carlos's bullet had grazed her, but she pushed the pain aside. She had to find Eli. Jackson covered her retreat, firing at the Raiders with lethal precision. Leah scrambled through the shadows, calling Eli's name. Suddenly, a faint cry echoed from the depths of the tunnels. "Eli!" Leah called, voice breaking. Maya sprinted toward the sound, following the young boy's desperate pleas through narrow passageways. She found Eli trapped beneath a fallen beam, his face pale but eyes shining with fierce determination. "Hold on, Eli," Maya said urgently, pulling at the heavy wood. With a grunt, she lifted it enough for him to crawl free. "We have to get out," Eli said, coughing. Outside, the sounds of battle continued, echoing through the tunnels like thunder. The survivors were scattered, their makeshift alliance shattered by betrayal and bloodshed. Maya helped Eli to his feet. "We can't stay here," she said, voice grim. "The Raiders control this section. We need another way out." They stumbled through the maze of tunnels, every step a battle against the dark and the unknown. Maya's mind raced, trust was broken, their safety shattered. And still, the shadow threat loomed, growing stronger in the darkness. Then, from the corner of her eye, Maya caught a glimmer of movement, faster than any zombie, more silent than any human. A shadow slipping through the ruins. She raised her knife, heart pounding. "We're not alone." As the first of the hybrids emerged from the darkness, their eyes glowing with unnatural intelligence, Maya steeled herself for the next fight. The war for the ruins of dead America had only just begun. "Would you like me to continue to part 4 now?" The hybrids moved like shadows, silent, deadly, and terrifyingly intelligent. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim tunnel light, and their cold expressions betrayed a cunning no ordinary zombie possessed. Maya's grip tightened on her knife, every muscle coiled for the fight she knew was coming. Jackson fired carefully, picking off one hybrid as it lunged forward with unnatural speed. But there were too many. The survivors were forced to retreat deeper into the labyrinth beneath the city, the stale, damp air closing in around them like a tomb. "Keep moving!" Maya barked, dragging Eli along as the others followed closely. Leah supported Eli, whispering calming words as his cough rattled through the tunnels. Each step felt heavier, the weight of exhaustion and fear pressing down hard. The sound of gunfire and growls faded behind them, replaced by the eerie silence of the underground. Their small band pressed onward, navigating by memory and instinct through the twisting, decaying subway lines. Every shadow seemed alive, every echo held a threat. Suddenly, the corridor opened into a massive chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. This was the heart of the old research facility, a forgotten command center, its walls lined with rusted consoles and broken monitors. A cold, sterile scent hung in the air, twisted now into something acrid and metallic. Maya scanned the room quickly. This must be where they ran the experiments. Somewhere in here is the signal controlling those hybrids. Soren, still walking with them, approached a shattered terminal. His fingers moved with familiarity over the broken keyboard, searching for any sign of life. "I can try to override the signal," he said, voice low and tense. "But we have to hurry. If those things catch up, we're done." Leah crouched near a flickering monitor, wiping dust away to reveal static and garbled images. There's something else here, a map, maybe? Look. Maya stepped closer, eyes scanning the glowing screen. It showed the underground tunnels extending far beyond what they'd expected, with a cluster of nodes pulsing near the old power plant, a place known for its unstable reactors. Power plant, Maya muttered. If the signal source is there, that's our next stop. Suddenly, a sharp metallic clatter echoed from the far side of the chamber. Everyone froze. Not again, Jackson growled, raising his pistol. From the shadows emerged a figure, not a hybrid, not a raider, but a human. Her eyes burned with wary defiance, and she held a makeshift spear tipped with rusted metal. Wait, she called out, stepping forward cautiously. I'm not here to fight. Maya studied the stranger carefully. Who are you? Name's Nora. I've been trapped down here for weeks. I've been tracking those creatures, trying to find a way to stop the signal. You're not alone. Soren nodded. We could use another set of eyes. Nora's gaze flicked toward the tunnels. But the longer we stay here, the closer they get. Without warning, the ground trembled, a distant roar that shook dust from the ceiling. The power plant must have been destabilizing. Maya's voice cut through the tension. We have to move. Now. The group gathered what supplies they could, ammo, scraps of food, anything that might aid their survival. As they prepared to leave, Maya caught sight of a hidden door partially covered by rubble. Help me clear this, she said. Together, they pushed aside the debris to reveal a narrow stairwell descending deeper underground. This might be a shortcut, Soren suggested. If it leads to the power plant, it could save us time and avoid those raiders. They exchanged tense glances. There was no time for doubt. With a final glance back at the dying glow of the command center, they descended into the darkness. The stairwell was steep and narrow, walls slick with moisture. The only sound was their measured breathing and the occasional drip of water. After what felt like an eternity, they emerged into a cavernous space, a vast chamber humming with unstable energy. The old power plant's machinery groaned and sparked erratically. Massive turbines stood silent, covered in rust, but the core was still faintly lit with a sickly green glow. Maya's heart pounded. This has to be it. Suddenly, alarms blared, an old emergency system flickering to life. Red lights flashed erratically, casting frantic shadows across the walls. Too late, Nora whispered. They found us. From the catwalks above, the hybrids appeared, more numerous than ever, their glowing eyes fixed on the survivors with predatory focus. They moved with precision, blocking every possible escape. Jackson fired into the advancing horde, buying precious seconds, but their ammunition was limited. We have to shut down the core. Soren yelled over the noise. It's the source of the signal. Destroy it, and the hybrids lose control. Maya nodded grimly. Leah, help me cover Soren. Jackson, prepare to evacuate Eli and Nora. Leah and Maya took up defensive positions as Soren scrambled toward the main control panel. The hybrids swarmed closer, snarling and clawing. Maya's blade flashed, cutting down one hybrid before another leapt at her. She twisted, dodging its grasp, and drove the knife deep into its skull. Leah fired carefully, picking off attackers with sharp shots. But the hybrids pressed relentlessly. Soren's fingers flew over the control panel, sweat streaming down his face. Almost there, just a few more seconds. Suddenly, a massive hybrid crashed through the railing above, blocking Jackson's path. Eli's wide eyes locked with Maya's. Please be careful. I will, Maya promised, voice steady despite the storm of fear inside. With a final keystroke, Soren triggered the shutdown sequence. The humming machinery slowed, lights flickered, and the eerie green glow began to fade. The hybrids froze, their glowing eyes dimming, confusion rippling through their ranks. Maya shouted, "Now! Move!" The survivors sprinted toward the stairwell as the plant trembled violently. Behind them, the core exploded in a deafening blast, sending a shockwave through the tunnels. They were forced to leap over rubble and debris as the structure crumbled. Bursting into the fresh air of the ruined city, Maya gasped. The sky was beginning to brighten with dawn. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered. But the shadows were not gone yet. Want me to roll out part 5? The dawn was pale and fragile, casting weak light over the ruined cityscape. The survivors stumbled out of the underground tunnels, coughing as the fresh air filled their lungs. Maya's arm still throbbed, a reminder of how close death had come. But there was no time to rest. The explosion from the power plant had drawn attention, both human and otherwise. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed faintly, a ghostly echo of the world that had been. Jackson scanned the streets, eyes sharp. We need to find shelter before the raiders or anyone else shows up. Leah helped Eli keep pace, his face pale but determined. Nora moved silently beside them, her spear at the ready. Soren, still shaken but focused, kept close to Maya. They found an abandoned fire station, a solid building, its doors hanging on broken hinges but offering better protection than the open streets. Inside, they barricaded the entrances with heavy furniture and settled in, catching their breath. As they waited, tension thickened. The scars of recent battles showed on every face, exhaustion, fear, and the unspoken question, how much longer could they trust each other? Carlos's betrayal lingered like a dark stain. Maya's eyes burned as she recalled the moment he turned on them, a bitter betrayal that nearly cost them everything. Leah broke the silence. We can't afford more betrayals. Not now. Nora nodded. There are others out there. Raiders, hybrids, even desperate survivors who'll do anything to survive. Jackson paced. We need a plan, something to strike back, to take the fight to them before they destroy us. Maya clenched her fists. First, we find out who's still alive. Who's out there? Soren spoke quietly. There's a radio tower not far from here. It might still work. If we can get a message out, maybe find allies. Eli's eyes lit with hope. A real connection? That sounds like a dream. Maya gave him a small smile. Dreams are what we fight for. Before they could rest, a sudden crash shattered a window. Raiders poured into the fire station, weapons blazing. Maya dove for cover, firing back with fury. The survivors fought fiercely, desperation sharpening every movement. Leah dragged Eli behind a toppled desk, shielding him from the chaos. Nora threw her spear with deadly accuracy, taking down one attacker. The raiders overwhelmed them, but the survivors' will was stronger. Slowly, the invaders faltered. When the last raider fell, silence returned. The room was littered with debris and spent bullets. Maya's breath was ragged, her body trembling from the fight. We can't keep doing this, she said, voice raw. We need a real base, real support. Jackson wiped blood from a cut on his cheek. Then we find it. Together. As night fell again, the survivors gathered their weapons and supplies. They would make for the radio tower at first light. But as they prepared to leave, Maya noticed Nora's gaze linger on her with a strange intensity. Something wrong? Maya asked. Nora hesitated, then spoke. There's more out there than just raiders and hybrids. People who want power, who see this collapse as an opportunity. Maya's jaw tightened. We've seen that. Nora's eyes flickered. I'm not just a survivor. I was part of a group trying to stop the experiments. But they're still out there. Watching. Maya nodded slowly. Then we need to be ready. The survivors moved through the night, shadows against the dying city. Each step brought them closer to unknown dangers, and to a chance at hope. But trust, like the ruins around them, was fragile. Want me to write part 6 next? The night air was sharp and biting as the group moved cautiously through the shattered streets, their footsteps muffled by dust and rubble. The ruined city stretched before them like a sleeping beast, silent but deadly. Maya led the way, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. Eli clutched her hand tightly, his youthful face etched with fatigue and fear. Leah stayed close, ready to protect him at a moment's notice. Jackson carried their limited ammunition, his gaze flickering between the crumbled buildings and the dark sky. Nora moved silently beside them, spear poised, her presence both reassuring and unsettling. Soren, still weak but determined, carried a small radio transmitter salvaged from the underground. The radio tower loomed ahead, an old relic, half-collapsed but standing defiantly against the decay. Its rusted antennas reached into the sky like skeletal fingers. "Almost there," Soren whispered. As they approached, the wind carried an eerie hum, like a distant song, an echo of the signal they'd tried to destroy. Maya's stomach clenched. "Is that the hybrids?" Eli whispered. Maya shook her head. "Not yet. But whatever's controlling them, it's still alive." They scrambled inside the tower's base, seeking shelter and an operational control room. The air inside was stale and heavy with dust. Old control panels flickered weakly, some screens blinking with static. Soren set to work immediately, fingers trembling as he connected the transmitter to the main console. "Give me a moment," he muttered. Outside, the wind howled through broken windows. The distant moans of zombies echoed faintly, a haunting reminder that death stalked them even here. Suddenly, the static on the radio burst to life. A crackling voice emerged, distorted but clear enough to send a chill down Maya's spine. "This is Station Echo. To any survivors, your fight is not over. The Shadow Protocol activates at dawn." The message repeated, looping endlessly. "The Shadow Protocol?" Maya repeated. "What the hell is that?" Nora's face grew grim. "I heard rumors. Something the government set up before everything fell apart, a failsafe to control or eliminate survivors. If it activates, it could mean total extermination." Jackson tightened his grip on his pistol. "We need to stop it." Soren frowned, typing rapidly. "I'm trying to trace the source of the broadcast." The console beeped, a digital map blinking to life. The signal originated from a facility far to the north, a place even more fortified than the power plant. Maya's mind raced. "We can't fight this alone." Suddenly, the radio crackled again, a new voice cutting through the static. "Survivors of Dead America, this is the Resistance. We've been monitoring the Shadow Protocol. Meet us at the old hospital, coordinates incoming." Coordinates blinked on the screen. Eli's eyes widened. "A resistance? Real people still fighting?" Leah nodded. "It's our best chance." But the moment was shattered by a sudden explosion outside. The building shook violently. "They found us!" Nora shouted. Through the cracked windows, Maya saw a swarm of hybrids pouring through the streets, their glowing eyes hungry for blood. "Get ready!" Maya yelled. They barricaded the door as the creatures slammed against it, snarling and pounding. The survivors fired back, but ammunition was scarce. The tower trembled under the assault. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the horde, a figure cloaked in darkness, moving with terrifying speed. It was a hybrid unlike any they had seen, larger, faster, smarter. Jackson fired repeatedly, but the creature shrugged off bullets like they were nothing. It advanced, eyes locked on Maya. With a roar, Maya charged, blade flashing. The two collided in a brutal struggle, sparks flying as knife met claw. Maya's heart pounded. This fight was more than survival. It was a battle for the future. With a desperate twist, she plunged her blade deep into the hybrid's chest. The creature shuddered, then fell, lifeless. The swarm hesitated, then retreated into the shadows. Breathing heavily, Maya looked around. "We hold here," she said firmly. "But at dawn, we move for the hospital." Soren grabbed the radio. "I'll send the coordinates." "We're not alone." As the survivors huddled, exhaustion and fear mingled with a fragile hope. The war against the shadows was far from over. Ready for part 7 when you are. The city was waking, but it offered no comfort. The first light of dawn spilled over broken buildings, casting long shadows like fingers clawing the ground. The survivors moved quickly, their footsteps muffled by dust and debris, as they headed toward the coordinates on Soren's radio. Maya led the way, her senses sharp, every muscle tensed for the inevitable confrontation. The hospital was a sprawling relic from the old world, its cracked windows like vacant eyes watching their approach. Vines clawed at the walls, and the faint stench of decay drifted in the wind. "This is it," Maya whispered. "The resistance is here." Jackson scanned the perimeter, pistol ready. "Too quiet." "That worries me." Leah helped Eli keep pace, his energy waning but spirit unbroken. Nora walked beside them, ever vigilant. As they crossed the hospital's threshold, the group was met by a small band of survivors, armed, cautious, but unmistakably organized. Their leader, a tall woman with steel-gray eyes, stepped forward. "Welcome," she said. "I'm Commander Harrow. You're the ones who took down the signal at the power plant." Maya nodded. "We stopped it, but the Shadow Protocol broadcast is still active. We need to shut it down completely." Harrow's gaze hardened. "You're right. The protocol is worse than we feared. It's a kill switch designed to wipe out any pockets of survivors left." Leah's voice trembled. "How do we stop it?" Harrow gestured them inside. "We need to reach the main control center beneath the city hospital. It's heavily guarded by hybrids and raiders loyal to those who want the protocol activated." Nora whispered, "This is a trap." Maya ignored the warning. "We don't have a choice." They moved deeper into the hospital's bowels, the air growing colder and heavier. Flickering lights cast unsettling shadows on cracked walls stained with blood and faded warnings. Every corner held a threat. A sudden screech echoed through the halls, followed by the guttural growls of approaching hybrids. "Ambush!" Jackson shouted. The survivors scrambled for cover, firing into the advancing horde. The hybrids crashed through doors and windows with feral rage, relentless and brutal. Maya's blade sang through the air, each strike fueled by desperation. Nearby, Harrow fought with practiced precision, her rifle barking death at every target. Leah shielded Eli behind a broken nurse's station. "Stay down," she urged. The battle raged, a cacophony of gunfire, snarls, and shouts. Slowly, the attackers thinned, retreating into the dark corridors. Panting, Maya looked around. "We have to keep moving. The control center is close." They reached a reinforced door, marked with faded biohazard symbols and electronic locks. Soren examined the panel, sweat dripping from his brow. "Give me a minute," he said. Suddenly, the door hissed open. From the shadows stepped a figure, Carlos. Maya froze, her heart hammering. "You? How?" Carlos smiled thinly. "I'm not your enemy, Maya. Not anymore." Harrow raised her weapon. "Get down. Don't trust him." Carlos held up his hands. "Wait. I've been working inside the system. The protocol can be stopped, but only with my help." Maya's mind reeled. Betrayal cut deep, but the stakes were too high. "Prove it," she demanded. Carlos nodded and stepped forward. "I can override the protocol from here, but I need someone to watch my back. The hybrids will come." Maya exchanged a glance with Harrow, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine. But one wrong move." "I won't," Carlos said, already typing rapidly on the terminal. The rest of the survivors took positions around the room, weapons ready. Minutes passed like hours as Carlos worked. Outside, the distant sound of approaching footsteps echoed, raiders and hybrids closing in. "Almost there," Carlos muttered. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The terminal beeped. "Done," Carlos said. A crackling voice broadcast over the hospital's PA system. "Protocol terminated. Survivors, you are no longer the target. Stand down." Relief washed over the room, but it was brief. A thunderous explosion rocked the building. The ceiling cracked, debris falling. The survivors scrambled as the structure began to collapse. "Get out!" Maya yelled. They dashed through crumbling halls, dodging falling rubble. Behind them, the hospital groaned, shaking with fury. Outside, they gasped for air as the building collapsed into a smoking ruin. Safe, for now. But Maya knew the fight was far from over. Carlos looked at her, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "You saved us all," he said quietly. Maya nodded, but the shadows in his gaze remained. The survivors regrouped, staring into the uncertain horizon. The war against the shadows had a new front, and it was only beginning. Ready to continue with Part 8? The sun climbed higher, spilling golden light over the shattered cityscape. The ruins of the hospital smoldered behind them, a grim monument to the cost of their fight. But today, a fragile hope stirred among the survivors. Maya stood at the edge of the group, her eyes scanning the horizon where distant mountains met the sky. The Shadow Protocol was no more, but the war was far from over. There were still dangers lurking, raiders, hybrids, and the shadows of humanity's darkest fears. Jackson approached, wiping sweat and grime from his face. "What now?" Maya turned to him, her expression steady but weary. "Now, we rebuild. We find others like us. We make sure this world doesn't fall back into darkness." Leah knelt beside Eli, who was watching a small bird flit among the broken trees. "Do you think we'll be safe again?" Maya smiled faintly. "Safe isn't a word we'll use lightly anymore. But together, we'll be stronger." Nora stepped forward, her spear resting on her shoulder. "There are still pockets of survivors. We've heard whispers of settlements out west and south. Maybe this is the beginning of a real resistance." Carlos stood apart, watching the group with guarded eyes. He had helped them stop the protocol, but the scars of betrayal still lingered. Maya met his gaze. "You saved us," she said softly. "But trust is earned." He nodded, understanding the weight of her words. As they prepared to move, a distant rumble caught their attention. The ground trembled beneath their feet. "Zombies?" Eli asked, clutching Maya's hand. "No," Maya said, eyes narrowing. "Something bigger." From the far edge of the ruins, a column of dust rose, a convoy of armored vehicles. Flags fluttered in the wind, emblazoned with a symbol none of them recognized. The survivors instinctively crouched, weapons ready. A voice crackled over a loudspeaker from the lead vehicle. "This is the New Dawn Coalition. We come in peace." Maya stepped forward, heart pounding. "Who are you?" The vehicle's hatch opened, revealing a man in military fatigues, his face stern but not unkind. "We're survivors, like you. Organized. Fighting to reclaim what was lost." Jackson exchanged a wary glance with Maya. "Can we trust them?" he asked. Maya hesitated, then said, "We have to try." The New Dawn soldiers helped the survivors gather supplies and medical aid. For the first time in a long while, there was a sense of purpose beyond mere survival. As night fell, they gathered around a fire, sharing stories and plans. Maya looked up at the stars, their cold light shining on a broken world, but also on a future they could shape. "We fought the shadows," she said quietly. "Now, we rise from the ruins. Not just to survive, but to live." The survivors nodded, faces illuminated by flickering flames and hope. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with threats both old and new. But together, they would face whatever came. Because from the ashes of dead America, a new resistance was born. If you want, I can help you craft another story or do a detailed summary for your series.